For 6 months, Meghan Markle said nothing. Not after the Spotify breakup, not after the Netflix rumors, not when Archewell was accused of mismanagement. Not a word. She let the headlines pile up. She let the speculation bloom unchecked. She watched as the world moved on. And then, just as King Charles stepped into a fresh round of cancer treatment, she spoke. Not loudly, not explosively, just enough. It started with something deceptively simple, a package. A curated selection from her new lifestyle brand, American Riviera Orchard, reportedly sent to King Charles himself. Jam, fig preserves, rosemary sea salt. All beautifully wrapped, all hand-picked, all too perfectly timed. To some, it was a gesture of peace, a reconciliation, a soft nudge toward healing a fractured royal family. To others, it was a warning shot disguised as a gift basket. Because context is everything. And in this context, it landed like a whispered threat. King Charles, while still performing public duties, is confirmed to be undergoing ongoing treatment for cancer. He remains composed, upbeat in appearances, thumbs up in photos. But everyone knows the crown is heavier now, and the palace quieter. And in that silence, Meghan chose her moment. It wasn't just about what she sent, it was when. According to insider leaks, Harry and Meghan had recently initiated back-channel talks with royal aides, a sort of diplomatic dance for financial leniency following what some tabloids called a post-Netflix cash drought. The gesture was framed as a peace offering. But what if it was a test? What if Meghan was watching more than hoping, waiting to see how Charles would respond? Not as a father-in-law, but as a monarch. And the response reportedly unsatisfactory. Suddenly, rumors of betrayal began trending again, not from Charles, but from Meghan. The word taunting appeared in royal commentary circles. Observers dug up the Netflix docuseries replaying her exaggerated curtsy with fresh interpretation. Was that a mockery, a prelude, a warning? Now, in light of her new gift, it reads differently. The palace, of course, remains silent. They will not comment on jam. They will not acknowledge fig preserves as political strategy. But they feel it, the pressure, the precision. Because timing is the ultimate weapon. And Meghan, she waited until the king was at his weakest to speak without words. She didn't hold a press conference. She didn't give an interview. She didn't call Oprah. She simply mailed a message, wrapped in linen, tied with gold ribbon. And the meaning was clear. I haven't forgotten. I just waited until you were listening. Whether it was cruel or cunning depends entirely on the lens. But one thing is certain, Meghan didn't just break silence, she weaponized it. And now, as the palace holds its breath, the question isn't whether she wants back in. It's whether she ever really left the game. There's a reason monarchies fear silence. Because it doesn't break like scandal. It seeps, undermines, spreads. And when the silence comes wrapped in politeness, it becomes unstoppable. Just like Meghan's gesture. At the center of this quiet storm is King Charles. Publicly, he appears fine, upbeat, engaged, still attending royal engagements, still waving from car windows. Privately, insiders confirm his treatment continues. The toll is real, the stamina wanes. The crown is intact, but the man beneath it is tired. And that, for Meghan, was the moment. The British press won't say it outright, but they whisper it in headlines. A crack in the palace, a vulnerable monarch, timing or taunt. Because for all of Charles's public strength, the reality is unavoidable. His position has never been weaker. Not politically, but personally. The Queen is gone, the institution is aging. His sons are at odds. And Meghan knows it. She didn't attack. She didn't accuse. She didn't even speak on record. She did something worse, she moved first. In chess, it's called forcing a position. You act, and the opponent can only react. And Charles, he's running out of moves. According to reports, royal aides had quietly entertained talks of inviting the Sussexes to official events again. Not full duties, but symbolic roles. A funeral plan mention, a gesture. Some called it compassion, others called it desperation. But behind palace doors, it sparked chaos. Prince William reportedly opposed any reintegration. Royal traditionalists warned it would betray the Queen's legacy. And now, with Meghan's timing, any hope of soft re-entry has been scorched by speculation. Because the question isn't what she said, it's when she said it. And that when coincided with Charles at his most exposed, no scandal to shield him, no energy for rebuttals, no palace machinery spinning up a distraction. Just Charles, alone with the weight of legacy, and a gift basket from California. Even within the monarchy, narratives matter. A king seen as forgiving noble, a king seen as manipulated weak. So when Meghan made her move, it forced Charles to either respond or retreat. And retreat this time looked a lot like silence. The message was subtle but brutal. Even your health can't protect you from what I choose to say next. And Charles, long trained in restraint, had only one weapon left, to say nothing. But in the media age, saying nothing is also an answer. and silence when repeated turns into erosion. This is what power looks like when it's too fragile to push back. Not defeated, not deposed, just frozen. And the woman once mocked for curtsying too low now towers over a king by doing nothing at all. Because when the crown cracks, it doesn't fall in one piece. It shatters in headlines, in speculations, in perfectly timed gestures from people who know the script better than the monarchy itself. In royal warfare, the loudest voice is rarely the most dangerous. It's the whisper, the pause, the moment chosen to say just enough. And Meghan Markle's moment was chosen with surgical precision. For months, she stayed out of the headlines, at least by her own doing. She said nothing when Spotify ended their partnership. She said nothing as Archewell faced scrutiny over donations. She said nothing when Netflix insiders began leaking rumors that the $100 million deal was dead on arrival. No comment, no appearance, no narrative defense. The silence was not retreat, it was a setup. Because then, when King Charles's health became the center of public concern, she moved. Just once, just quietly, and the world noticed. It wasn't an interview, it wasn't a memoir. It was a curated brand box. Preserves, herbs, embossed calligraphy, and in it a message without words. You need me to be quiet, so I'll speak when it costs you the most. Insiders say Meghan was behind recent reconciliation feelers sent to Charles's aides. The press called them peace talks. Critics called it begging. Royal loyalists called it strategic manipulation. But Meghan, she made no statement. She let the narrative play out without resistance. And in doing so, she shaped it. Because silence invites projection. Was she asking for help? Was she asserting power? Was she trying to re-enter the royal fold or reminding them why they shut the door in the first place? Meghan didn't answer. She let the question hang, and that silence did more damage than any direct quote ever could. In chess, the most elegant check is the one that doesn't come from a shout, but a move so simple. So quiet, the board doesn't realize it's over until it is. That was Meghan's move. She'd been mocked for the curtsy, attacked for archetypes, ridiculed for her brand. But she knew the rhythm of royal scandal. She knew when to let the press exhaust itself, and when to reinsert herself at just the right moment. Right when Charles was too weak to push back. Right when William was too angry to act diplomatically. Right when Harry's voice had become an echo of itself. She spoke. And in speaking, she reclaimed her position on the board. Not as duchess, not as exile, as strategist. Because in royal politics, you don't need to shout to be heard. You just need to time the silence so perfectly that when you break it, everything else sounds like noise. And that's what Meghan did. Once upon a time, King Charles had buffers. The queen, the firm, the courtiers who knew when to spin, when to bury, when to unleash the silent wrath of protocol. Now it's just Charles. And silence, as it turns out, doesn't protect like it used to. When Queen Elizabeth reigned, she absorbed criticism like marble, solid, unmoved, eternal. But Charles, he was never built that way. He emotes, he hesitates, he explains. And that makes him visible, woundable, especially now. Especially with cancer still clouding his calendar and a son in self-imposed exile who won't stop making headlines from a hemisphere away. Charles never expected to rule this long, not under this scrutiny, not while his family continues to unravel in real time. His strength has always been his patience, but patience doesn't go viral. It doesn't trend. It doesn't fight back. And Meghan, she doesn't need to trend anymore. She just needs to linger in the margins until the right moment, then whisper loud enough to be heard everywhere. So when she sent that gift basket with fig jam and sea salt, knowing the cameras were focused on Charles's health, knowing William was fuming over funeral plan leaks, knowing Harry was ghosting the UK, it wasn't sweetness. It was pressure. Elegant, tactical, undeniable. And Charles, surrounded by less loyal aides, weaker PR walls, and a growing generational divide, just nodded. He didn't refute, he didn't reject, he didn't respond. He endured. But even that now looks like surrender. Sources say William was livid, not because of the jam, because of what it signaled. That Meghan could still move the chessboard without stepping foot inside the palace. And Charles, whether by exhaustion or empathy, let her. Where once there were teams crafting counter-narratives, now there is just fatigue. Fatigue from diplomacy, from scandal management, from trying to be a father, a king, a symbol, all at once. And fatigue in royal politics looks a lot like weakness. What Charles faces isn't Meghan, it's time. A system too slow to adapt, a crown too heavy to defend itself. He is no longer the heir waiting to modernize. He is the monarch watching his reign age faster than he does. And Meghan, she doesn't need to oppose him directly. She just needs to remind the world that even now she can make him flinch. Because what is a shield if it can't stop the echo of a voice that chose to speak when no one else dared? King Charles didn't answer. Not when the jam arrived, not when the headlines spun, not when commentators whispered about reconciliation or weakness or betrayal. But that was the problem, because in the absence of a response, a vacuum formed. And into that vacuum, Meghan stepped. She didn't make noise, she made space. Space for speculation, for doubt, for a kind of influence that doesn't shout its stains. And that more than any press interview was the move that cut deepest. Because in royal wars, it's not who speaks loudest. It's who chooses when to speak and what their silence says when they don't. Meghan has mastered both. Now, Charles stands in a palace more fragile than ever, not because the walls cracked, but because the public can sense the quiet isn't strength anymore. It's uncertainty, it's fatigue, it's a crown with no voice left to defend it. And so the question no longer rests on what Meghan meant. It's why no one could stop her and why she knew they wouldn't try. She didn't demand re-entry into the royal fold. She reminded them that even outside the gates, she can reach inside and touch the nerves they pretend aren't frayed. The silence is over, but the war isn't loud. It's layered, it's cold. It's fought with gestures, with timing, with knowing when a whisper hits harder than a speech. And now, as the dust settles around a box of jam, the nation doesn't just ask what's next for Meghan. They ask, what's left of Charles and who, if anyone is still guarding the throne. Now it's your turn. What does silence mean in this war of legacy? Team Meghan, a woman exiled but not erased. She chose the moment. She controlled the frame. Or Team Charles, a monarch under siege who deserves peace, not PR chess. He stayed silent out of dignity. Fritz's a Team William, the heir forced to watch a narrative reassemble while the crown hesitates. Situi Rawins. Team narrative. The game isn't about family anymore. It's about whoever controls the story, and silence is just another move. Because in this royal drama, the lines are redrawn not by declarations, but by who dares to speak when no one else can.